Jeff?
Yes, sir. Wait, are you waiting for me to do it?
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Jeff Johnson about to introduce the Drink and Draw Show. Take it away, Jeff.
All right. I didn't know I was on deck to do this. I did it last time. All right.
Jeff Johnson, ladies and gentlemen. Jeff Johnson. Let's go, Jeff.
Okay, gang. Here we go.
Day now.
I'm gonna ease into it. Everyone, welcome to the latest installment of the Drink and Draw Social Club Hour. Hopefully an hour, maybe more, depending. Today, we are welcoming back Jock, who we had a little bit of internet trouble last time. So there he is. His stream looks good. He looks good. Jock, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on again. Sorry about last week. It was a horror show of technical problems, but I think we're all set for this week. How are you guys doing?
We're doing all right. Dave, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Doing great.
Joe, what do you got a sandwich on deck? Last time looked like you had a tasty lunch.
Yeah. I'll go through this again. So no sandwich today.
Okay.
My favorite thing in the world, Oreo mega stuff.
Those look good.
Not double stuff, not the more stuff, mega stuff. Proof that there is a God. Absolute proof that there is a God. These things are unreal, really. But
if you keep eating them, eventually you'll meet them.
Yeah.
Eventually we all will, regardless of what you're eating.
Yeah, exactly.
Why
not eat the mega stuff? Eat it all. Dan, how are you doing over there?
I would have had the pleasure of eating mega stuff. That's all I can tell you.
There you go. Dan, you're good? Yeah.
I'm good. I'm not bad.
All right.
Doing okay.
You don't look good, Dan. You look a little worn out, like life's taking its toll on. Let's get a close up on Dan. Or Dan, get a close up.
Bedraggled.
I will. Right? I mean, am I wrong, guys? He's looking a little.
He's looking. I think he could use a haircut.
Yeah, probably a little shaggy.
We
I keep offering to come over and give him one, but
I could definitely use the haircut.
Oh my God! Look at Jeff Johnson.
Yeah. It's bananas.
I know.
Dave,
I've never seen quite like that.
Yeah.
How's the eyebrow game going, Dave?
I don't know, but the beard is definitely.
Wow.
That's terrifying.
No, I gave up on the eyebrows. It was driving me nuts. I don't see how Bernie kept them so long. Like it started literally driving me crazy. I mean, if there was a torture, it would be growing my eyebrows out and then not letting me do anything about them. It was ridiculous.
That's all it would take to break you. Just
pretty much.
A month of not grooming.
I couldn't do that.
We've got two guys here that we're trying to torture. One guy we're putting through the water torture thing, and he's not breaking. But this other guy, we grew his eyebrows out like half an inch. He broke instantly. He gave everybody
He told us everything. Yeah.
I never thought I could take torture.
Jock, how's
back, Jock?
Yeah, thanks. As I say, what a horror show it was last week. Thanks for putting up with me, and thanks for having me back on.
Hey, Jock, your hair looks neatly coiffed.
Yeah, great.
Just me and my son just shaved our heads about 3 or 4 weeks ago because it was getting too much. So we just got rid of it. Yeah.
Cool.
Do you guys remember the Floby?
Yeah.
I remember it.
Do you have one? Do you know what a Floby is, Jock?
Oh no! What is that?
The Floby was basically a pair of clippers attached to a vacuum, so that you would cut your hair and then it would suck away the hair as you were doing it.
No, that's not quite 100% accurate because it was a pair of clippers, but it had this like plastic rim around it. So let's say it was like an inch plastic guard around it. So if you wanted your hair cut an inch around your entire head, you would do this.
You could set it?
And you attach it to your vacuum and it starts sucking your hair. So it sucks your hair up into it. So in theory, it cuts everything an inch even, right? And then you can use a shorter version to cut the back and stuff. I'm just impressed with
clippers. You had various lengths that that the hair would get sucked into. So my mom had one,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which explains a lot.
That was for her. That was for her womanscaping, though. That was, right.
She had one of those terms,
so.
Dave, though, does an amazing job of cutting his own hair. Like every once in a while, you show off your haircut here, Dave, and it wasn't until like several weeks ago you said, "Oh, I do that myself," and I'm like, "Whoa!" I thought you were getting like $300 style, man.
No, when you start losing your hair, it's pretty much it becomes super easy to cut your own hair. So it didn't seem like worth it to pay somebody $30 to do something I could do myself.
Yeah.
So,
And this is
You're saying the hair just doesn't fight anymore? It just takes it?
well, there's so much less of it, there's less to screw up. Let's put it that way. So,
Gotcha.
Look at this. Dan doesn't need a haircut. That's some serious Duran Duran style hair.
There you go.
How much product you got in that hair, Dan?
You know what? Not much, really. It's just grease and mega stuff, really, like Oreo mega stuff.
That stuff has got powerful hold.
And the Coke and Baby on. You forgot the Coke.
Yeah, I mean that's just natural. I just like flick it on there.
Sorry, Jack. I mean, we're just catching up here. In case you,
it's great.
In case you ever heard a previous episode, Dan in his youth, when he would go out sunning, liked to slather himself with baby oil mixed with Coca-Cola, not cocaine, Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
Because the Coke had a caramel tint to it, and it would make him tan faster.
It would dye the skin a little bit.
Is this real, Dan? Is this true?
Sadly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow. I'd like to say no. Oh no, never.
So we're all about the truth on this show.
Yeah.
What age is this, like sort of 43, 44?
When I was 44, yeah, that stopped. I go, enough is enough. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow. The giveaway was when you said that you haven't. When Joe asked you how much product you've got in your hair, you just said not much, which means
Right. It's all relative.
it's all relative. Yeah, it's relative to caking your whole body in dried Coca-Cola. Sure.
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
mean, exactly.
Don't do that anymore.
Comparatively, not much.
Hey, Jock, so you had a really great assortment of whiskeys last time. What are you drinking now?
Yeah.
So it turns out that my internet is screwed in my studio. So I've come in the house. I'm in my son's bedroom. I've stolen his bedroom. He went back to university yesterday. So I'm on a little table in his bedroom, and I have a little assortment of stuff. So I've got quite good an angle.
Nice.
I've got a couple of Aberlours, and I've got an Indian whiskey, which I've never tried. I don't think you can see that. Yeah, it's going to be like cool. And I've got a bit of Talisker Storm as well. So, but right now I'm just a lager.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
So last week, even though we had trouble hearing you, we were able to watch you do some really awesome drawings of Batman. And I had a question about it because there was just so much confidence and speed. It was almost like watching a samurai do a ink wash painting. Do you know what you're going to draw as you're drawing it? Or are you experimenting on the page? Like how do you do it so confidently?
First, thanks. I got a lot of comments saying when we started how quickly that I drew, and I definitely they were pretty quick last week. I wouldn't normally draw pages that quickly, or even sketches maybe, but I definitely try and actually it's a combination because I try and visualize the thing in my head. I try and see it on the page. I think that helps with depth and perception of form and stuff. Rather than just kind of looking at your pencil and trying to imagine what it might become. I think it helps if you have a solid idea about what you're trying to achieve beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
But then saying that, because I love ink and big brushes and big markers and little kind of accidents happen that can push you off in kind of different directions, I guess, and that's kind of that's the thing that still makes me really enjoy this and really excited when that stuff happens, because I use a Mac and Photoshop a lot as well, but I'm afraid I'm still firmly in the kind of the little accidents that happen with ink. I just sometimes it's terrible, but there's a flip side, but sometimes you can just suggest something that you just that there's something in the way that we all know you make a quick mark, or the brush behaves a bit differently and it spats a bit of ink and it just kind of suggests a little bit more, and so it's kind of born out of that, really. I try and you all know what it's like. When I first when I first got my kind of first bit of DC artboard, it's kind of like, oh my God, here we go. It's my turn now. What am I going to do? And you get that kind of almost like a bit of a stage fright. And I think I probably redrew, a bunch of pages. But now, the stuff that I like and the people that I really enjoy, you can sort of, I think we talked about this last week. That you can kind of feel them in the art, and the kind of, so I'm sort of encouraged just to throw down, what I like and what I'm kind of into seeing, and in the hope that other people will kind of respond to it. And again, like we talked about last week, luckily it's worked out okay, so so it's that really, it's kind of being inspired by what I see other people doing, and kind of having a go myself, I guess. I guess that's what we all do, isn't it, really, to a degree.
Something like this, like with the shadow with the scarf, that looks, so spontaneous, and that's what gives it a lot of fun and life. How many times are you really doing that? If I don't know if that's by hand or on Photoshop or.
Yeah, it's by hand, but I probably cut into it a little bit in Photoshop just to tidy up the shape of the shadow. But I think that cover will be way better if I think I was chatting to Will Dennis about it. This might have even been Will's idea actually, but the cover would have been way better if I removed Batman's shadow and it was just Batman in the corner with the shadow. I think, personally, I think that would make a stronger cover. But yeah, no, that's basically by hand. Those shadows were done with big fat marker pens, and then scan it in and maybe just cut into it a little bit and tidy it up and kind of sharpen it a little bit, because. Yeah, I still try and just throw stuff down, so long as the concept's solid and the the composition and the underdrawing is solid, then I think you can kind of throw stuff on top sometimes, and it kind of brings a life to it on top of like the solid foundations that you have underneath, if that makes sense. I've never been, I kind of envy the guys that can just meticulously put in tons of detail, and I love that stuff. I grew up reading 2000 AD and Brian Bolland. I love Brian's work, but it's something that I could never do. So I kind of really respect that kind of approach, but clearly
very iconic images that I always think that's a mark of a great artist, because a lot of times you'll see, as you're starting out, they'll say, don't do pinups, don't just do that straight shot. And yet on movie posters and a lot of iconic imagery, it is kind of the straight shot, but not everybody can pull that off and make it look unique or make it look original or something we haven't seen. Like it's revisiting I guess a trope of like a visual trope of some kind, but you give it a fresh sort of look. It's an interesting approach. This one in particular is just, it's Batman standing there, but it's so ominous, and you see all the gear, and you see the flash of blue below there. Everything about it is.
But you know what? Then it's like I think it's less about the gear, less about the blue, less about all this stuff. And Jock, tell me if you think I'm off base here. I think it's the attitude of the figure. Yeah. Right. It's because to me that particular position, right? That attitude, the look over the sort of the 3/4 with a little bit of the tilt to the head, looking over looking over the brow kind of thing. He could have done that in the 1970s Batman's outfit, and it's still incredibly badass.
Yeah, I definitely think lighting has something to do with,
Yeah, lighting has something to do with it, but but again, I think you have to start with that body posture. Just the tilt of that head is so hard to do, and I find that when I get something like that, it's usually because it was complete happenstance and accident. I just kind of nailed it by accident. I'm like, oh, So
and again, thanks guys. That's really nice to hear, because for me, going back to what I was saying, that sort of attitude in the drawing, I think that is, the artist character coming through. When we all see drawings that we love, and for me, I guess try and put a bit of swagger in, into the characters, try and just give them something, some life behind kind of why they're. Otherwise, particularly in the world of comics, a lot of guys can look kind of pretty ridiculous, so you have to give them life and give them the weight and the depth and the kind of, the sort of gravitas, that they kind of deserve, I think, to make them kind of work. Yeah. And obviously sometimes it's successful and other times maybe not so much. But Dan, going back to what you were saying about, like the rules, don't do pinups. I constantly come up against, it's most covers, I think, are just kind of like illustrations, and what I mean by that is that more often than not, it's, for the sake of argument, to be really cliched, it might be two characters, fighting on a cover, two superheroes, whatever. And I've certainly had assignments like that where it's like, okay, what's on the next cover? It's so and so and so and so, and they're fighting, So it's like, so what do you do? What do you do to kind of to stand apart from that and kind of make that interesting? And I think, for me, my route was always design. Interesting compositions and negative space and large areas of flat color or black or strong shadows or whatever, like so many other people do so well. Dave's a master of design, for example, I think, but also when you can elevate it by making the cover an idea rather than just an illustration. So like, we talked about this, I think, last year, Dave, when we were at a show, how you can do little visual tricks and puns. Like that Batman that we were just looking at, that is just a shot of Batman, and I'm glad you think he looks cool. But I think the best covers kind of there's another kind of level to them, and another kind of idea behind them, which kind of elevates them. So you might have, I guess, like again, we were chatting last week about that Joker cover that has become kind of fairly well known. He's made up of bats. I mean, it's a very simple idea, but it gets across another level, I guess, of what's going on for that character. And that's the stuff that I love doing. And that's the stuff that, when I come up with that stuff, that's the stuff that makes me kind of satisfied. It's great doing a cool shot of, Daredevil or Batman or whatever, but there are certain pieces you do, and that that there's just an extra little thing about them, which kind of, and again, like Dave was so good. Dave's 100 Bullets covers, for example, were some of the first stuff I remember seeing when I started at Vertigo, and just thinking, okay, there's some room here to kind of play around and bring some sort of other influences into it, and that's, luckily, my editor Will that I mentioned, was really supportive and up for us trying stuff, and they let me move the logo around and incorporate the logo into the images and put it on the floor, and at the same angle, the same plane as the floor, where the character's walking across the logo, or whatever it is, little tricks like that arguably maybe 5 years previous to that, DC might not have let me do, but they did, for whatever reason. And
Will was great allowing me to just try stuff.
And
I did. It's so nice to have a job that, they say basically do whatever you feel is going to help the book, or services the story and stuff like that. So, I mean, as opposed to an editor who just wants to hamstring you and feels like his ideas are the best ideas, and you can't even convince him to try something new, So, hopefully Will is watching, he was last week. I know that.
He was. But and also actually to go back to the original question, like, why I one of the reasons that I do it the way I do it is actually because early on I had that support, I guess, my editor, and Will was my first editor at DC as well. So that was that was my experience of editors. It was like a guy that would absolutely make what I was doing better, by suggesting an idea. His classic thing is if the cover was, feeling slightly kind of lifeless or still, Dutch the angle and crop, like you just move the angle and zoom in a bit, and suddenly the design can become more interesting. Zoom in like that, and then suddenly a figure might be slightly off, and it immediately just made things way more interesting. So, maybe and people seem to like the losers. So maybe to answer the original question, that's maybe that bolstered me early on. I think maybe coming over to the American market, that I could do that stuff, and maybe it would be okay. And it's one of the things that I'm most grateful of, that it's kind of worked out that way, So yeah.
Nice.
Did you start off as a penciler, or did you start off as a painter? Like, what was when you were first thinking of yourself as an artist, what kind of artist did you want to be?
I was a painter, actually. I painted. And sort of those late 80s comics, which I think some have aged better than others, but the painter stuff, your Kent Williams and your Dave McKean and John J. Muth, beautiful kind of painted work. When I didn't get in, I was rejected from art college, and I absolutely tried to sort of like turn my hand to comics, but with a painted take, I think, and again, I think I said this last week, but when I eventually got work at 2000 AD, and Andy Diggle phoned and said, can you do 12 black and white pages of Judge Dredd in a month? And I just sort of said, yeah, sure. And then I had to work it out from there. So, the painted stuff, I'm sort of pleased though that I did that, because it gives you a really great awareness of if you, my favorite guys are just people that I don't care what style it is. I don't care what sort of medium it is. It's just whether they can draw, like all you guys can draw like motherfuckers, frankly, is and I love all your work, and that's the thing for me. It's like, so and painting, you can't, if you can't draw very well and you paint it as well, I think it reveals the bad drawing even more. It becomes even more sloppy and even more kind of, mediocre, essentially. So I painted and then kind of fell into doing black and white stuff.
So what's your sort of take on, because your storytelling is also super graphic, and the way you use black and white and heavy foreground, like you really have a very strong sense of three-dimensionality in your work. Like, how does that affect the painting affect your storytelling idea? Like how you thought to break down a page?
That's really nice to hear as well. Thanks. It's actually coming on this more often. You guys really make me feel good. No, but joking aside, I think a lot of that came from actually, when we go back to starting at Vertigo, when we did the Losers, coming from a sort of painted background. I wasn't expecting my first Vertigo job to be like an action book, like a real world set action book. There was so much, Sandman stuff and all that kind of stuff, which actually I was never really that into, I have to say. But nonetheless, I didn't expect my first Vertigo stuff to be that kind of book. But if it was going to be that kind of book, me and Andy both said, okay, if we're going to do an action book, let's make it, the best action book we can. Like that, and that's always what I've sort of gone for. So Losers was really a kind of trial by fire. It was my first monthly book. It was I think the first cover as well was the first cover that I did using a Mac. Literally the first image I ever did. So I learned each month, like, the shop front, on the window display of a comic, like, each month being published, and you learn quickly, and the strip work, the interiors were relentless, and I just had to dive in and go for it, and luckily, Andy Diggle's he's a fantastic writer, and his plot and scripts are very tight, they're very there's no holes, there's no gaps. He's very what's the right word? Terse. He just gets to the point in a very, very good way. And I think that's something that you learn from 2000 AD. Telling a story in like 5-6 pages rather than like 22 pages. So then when you do come over to America and you've got 22 pages to play with, suddenly you've got room to breathe, and you can play with like slightly subtler things and stuff. But Andy still had that foundation of it being a super solid kind of plot driven book. So that probably helped, to be honest, as well. But storytelling is it's a huge part of kind of what we do, and it's not the same as coming up with a cool cover or a great idea for a poster or whatever it might be. It's storytelling is its kind of own unique thing, and I sort of love the idea that like a comic story is it's the whole thing that you should pay attention to, not one panel, not one page, not one kind of like particular kind of like composition of 2 panels, whatever. You think about the whole thing, like think of it almost like as a whole thing, and suddenly I don't know, that was really helpful for me, and like when I do layouts, I try and do them almost at the speed that I'm reading the script, so you get a sense of how the reader will move through the page and how fast they'll kind of pass through the images, so you don't get too bogged down, and you try and get a good sense of the rhythm and the beats and where you should have splash pages and tight shots and staggered panels and tight panels to speed up the rhythm and all that stuff. That I find that I love that as well. So thanks again.
So you just said, so when you're going through a script and you try to do quick layouts as the speed of your reading it, do you just do little thumbnails in the margins while you're doing that?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I just have a small, for the actual pages about this big, and I just read and I draw and you vary. There's it's like once you do that more and more, you get more sort of adept at it, and you get more things surprise you, and more things kind of come out that you weren't expecting, and those things feel like the exciting bits, the bits that kind of. Right. The other thing about comics as well, luckily I get to work in other fields as well, and comics, there's a relentlessness to them. It's a grind. When you have those monthly deadlines, which is hard. It's as we all know, it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, a monthly book is brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. Exactly, that's the perfect word. But also I think there's something to be said for when you're forced to do that amount of drawing, those amount of images, that amount of stuff. Things will happen that you would never have done if you were, going slower, or just doing pinups, or just, what I mean? Like, things come out in the storytelling that kind of merge with the script and really kind of meld and make something cool, which again is the stuff that kind of, that kind of excites me about it, I guess. Comics are great.
I really like the idea of you taking almost your first instinct as you're reading. Like, what's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Yeah, definitely. That's for me. That's it. Like that's the purest. When you read a script, you have a reaction to it. That's probably your the right reaction. Especially when it's someone that you work with a lot, so you're kind of in tune with them. Luckily, I've worked with friends over the years, and we do tend to. There's a bit of shorthand that happens, and then there's, I don't want to get too, but then there's a little bit of magic as well. Things surprise you, and little things that you would never come up with by yourself, or you'd never come up with if you were, too, sort of bogging yourself down with it, and just stuff just kind of comes out, and I love that. I love that stuff. That's what excites me the most.
Sweet. Yeah, I definitely think there's not only a great alchemy between the penciler and the writer, but between the rest of the team too. If you've got a great inker or a great colorist, that the stuff that you can do together is so much more than what you can do on your own. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's greater than the sum of its parts. And that's one thing that I love as well. Like I've never had an inker. I've only ever penciled in my own stuff. But obviously I've had a few colorists over the years, and I love other people coming on and bringing their stuff to it, and I always try and say to people to kind of, go wild, just do your thing, because otherwise, why are you on the book kind of thing, and let me see what you can do kind of thing, and that's it's really cool. Yeah, it's exciting.
So are you gonna Dan, what are you working on over there? What's that I see?
I am last week I was trying to do this Catwoman Batman Who Laughs thing, and it didn't come out so hot, so I'm revisiting it.
Cool.
I thought you were napping, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm never happy.
No, it's all. I mean, that's a tough character to draw. The Batman Who Laughs. What is that? Oh, that spiky thing is bananas.
Tell me about it.
Who would come up with that?
Yeah, who designed that thing?
It was Greg Capullo.
That figures.
Oh, well, he's so good at making things. Yeah, he could draw anything. That guy.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of his stuff today. In fact,
it's fantastic. I love Greg's stuff.
A lot of he just really one of those artists that just you never get tired of looking. It's very spontaneous, also all the time, and
his structure is flawless. It's always his shapes are always perfect.
Yeah.
Joe, are you drawing something? Can we see it or not?
Not really. I mean, I'll try to show a little bit of it later. It's just it's a project that's gonna be printed. So
all right.
I'll try. I'll find a spot that I can show you.
Why are you always trying to get Joe in trouble?
I just always was curious. That's all.
Yeah.
Just curious.
You're always trying to get Joe to get a little bit, get some kind of reprimand.
Well, it's hard for me to get an original drawing ready for these early afternoon ones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
No, it's not your fault.
Well, it kind of is, but we're not going to blame you.
Well, not on the air. I will blame John.
Right.
More done.
Stupid European guest.
These speak English.
Yeah.
So, So, Jock, you said that you started off doing 2000 AD. That was sort of your first gig, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So who were you just always read it as a kid? Do you have any favorite artists that did 2000 AD that you kind of studied and used as models for your work?
Yeah, I came to 2000 AD quite late. I was about 14, maybe 13, no, probably about 14, I think. But as soon as I started reading it, I knew that comics was what I wanted to do, basically,
Wow.
Yeah, it was as simple as that. But then again, you realize, again, we chatted about this, how, the guys that were working on that book realized how lucky our generation in a lot of my generation in the UK were. To have that stuff, and to my young brain, it was like dynamite going off. It was I immediately became a huge fan and bought as much as I could of 2000 AD. I mean, where to start? Brian Bolland, Mike McMahon, Dave Gibbons, Alan Moore, Grant Morrison. The list goes on and on and on and on. And I think going back to what we were saying earlier, the thing about 2000 AD was that these were all guys doing their own thing. They were given a platform to kind of write or draw in the way. Each strip looked completely different. There was no house style. There was no set way of doing things, and that meant that you got all these amazing people just kind of cutting loose. And I realized how lucky we were to have that. So. Yeah, Judge Dredd was always my favorite character. Still is in lots of ways, that's what I first kind of pursued as work. Going to conventions with a portfolio under my arm, hitchhiking. I live in the southwest of England now. But my first convention, me and my friend Dom Reardon, who draws 2000 AD as well, we hitchhiked all the way up to Glasgow in Scotland, which is where I was born, funnily enough. But it's 500, 600 miles away, I think. And we hitchhiked up there. I was young. I had long hair and homemade trousers on, and a massive portfolio.
Whoa! Homemade trousers.
You tried to skip past that pretty fast. What
was a homemade trouser like?
There was a friend of mine. She made garments, and she made me some trousers. What can I say?
Wow. I had a friend like that.
Yeah, really.
And we hitchhiked up there, and it was kind of, you know, it's like when you're young. It was sort of, it was everything went right. You know, the hitch could have gone really badly. It was a long way to do in one day, but we got there in one day. We arrived at like 11 p.m. at night. Got to the show, and the first person we lined up to see was Glenn Fabry. You know Glenn? Yeah. And Glenn, so I think I was like 22, and Dom was only 18. Dom's fantastic. He was only 18, and we both went up and said hello to Glenn, and he literally said, "Why are you showing this to me? Fuck off and make some money," is what he said.
That sounds very much like.
and then there was a guy who I've never met since, a big Canadian guy called Angus, who was by Glenn's table, who heard this and went and told the editor of 2000 AD. So then 2000 AD came looking for us, and that was like,
that's great.
and actually, like, we weren't quite ready yet, but the editor we met, Steve McManus, who was the editor during arguably the prime time of 2000 AD, you know, the mid 80s, where you know, again, arguably, you know, some of the best stuff came out of that comic. Came looking for us, and it was you know, yeah, it was great. It was great. It turned out Steve went to school in this town, in Totnes, where I now live. It turned out that Steve grew up here. He called us with our first assignment, like on a Sunday. He was out of the office. He just kind of treated it like he was checking up on these kids that he just you know, and just wanted to say hello to them and see how we're doing, and if we were still pursuing what we wanted to do. And yeah, I'll never forget, actually, because we were me and Dom were in a band. We've been in many bands over the years, and me and Dom were in a band at the time, and we used to rehearse in his parents' basement. They live in a big farmhouse not far from here, beautiful little spot, and we used to rehearse every Sunday, and every so often, like, this is before the internet, you know, like his mum would come down and say, "Oh, Dom, the phone for you." And there's one Sunday, Sandra, Dom's mum, came down and said, "Oh, Dom's the phone for you," and Dom disappeared, and we carried on jamming and just sort of, you know, thinking about. And then Dom came back down, and he just said, "Jock, phone for you, mate. It's Steve McManus." And I was like, "What?" You know, like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, 2000 AD, you know, the boss of 2000 AD was calling us on a Sunday. So I went upstairs and took the call and got my first Judge Dredd pinup. But that was that was kind of early on, and we weren't really ready for strip work. So it took a couple of years after that, really, before you know, before we got regular stuff. But yeah, 2000 AD was and still is, you know, still going strong. Amazing stuff still in there, and you know, it's a real. Well, you know, one of the things that I'm not a huge fan of is the idea that you kind of use 2000 AD to jump to America, even though arguably, you know, that's kind of, you know, the path that I took. 2000, I've always got time for 2000 AD. You know, it's an amazing place to work, and you know, but because of the nature of it, it does seem to be like a hotbed of new talent, and the new talent seems to get spotted, you know, and then they can often kind of, you know, go elsewhere, unfortunately. But yeah, love 2000 AD.
Well, it seems like the editor Steve also had a really great eye for talent and for cultivating it.
I mean, he was just a diamond. He really was. And I saw him again more recently, kind of maybe 4 years ago. He was in fact, it was a 2000 AD 40th anniversary show that they had in London, and I hadn't seen him since that time. You know, like 20 years ago, 25 years ago, even, you know, a long time ago. I'm getting old. It's really weird. I still feel like a newcomer, but I've been doing this for so long now that I'm clearly not. Saw Steve for the first time, and it was so lovely to see him, and I really, really got the chance to thank him properly, you know, because without him, you know, there's a lot of people that I'm sure that we all have them, you know, certain kind of characters that kind of just sort of bring us up or support us and help us on our way, and Steve was just so instrumental in that, and I got the chance to thank him and buy him a curry and a few pints, you know, to say thank you.
And that's the standard, right? You buy a man a curry.
That's how it seems like I owe. Fabian Niciesa was the guy who helped me out in the same way. when I was a kid and got me into Marvel and onto my first big book. And just great. It helped. Like really, a great editor is not only can be a good friend, but can be a real rocket for your career to help you figure stuff out and push you in ways you might not have thought of. Since it's such especially back then, I guess there's more colleges and schools you can go to now, but back then there was really no formal curriculum for learning how to be a comic book artist.
Sure. Yeah.
Now you can spend $250,000 to learn how to become a comic book artist. So we've really come a long way.
Yeah. That seems like money well spent.
Sure.
Yeah, I was actively. I had 1 year at art college doing like a foundation course, and then I was rejected from all the degree courses that I tried to get into. I know our college system is different to you guys, but it's essentially going to a proper kind of higher education course, and I was rejected from all of them. But I did 1 year of degree stuff, and they were so against comic stuff. They were so. They really tried to steer me away from it, but then I didn't get into college, and arguably if I had, again, I might
broke.
I'd be broke.
Right.
Yeah, they don't want people making money. They want other people to be commiserative of the fact that they're also not making money.
Right.
So
it's like a conspiracy.
Yeah. It's like they're not trying to create artists; they're trying to create future art teachers.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Dave, you sound really down on school, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, kids, stay in school.
Stay in school.
I think once again, if you're spending $250,000 to learn how to draw comics, then you need somebody to tell you the truth. So.
And Dave is that man.
I am that man. Someone's got to.
Is the course with you, Dave? This $250,000?
Yeah, I wish.
Dave is not the best salesman when it comes to his own course.
No, I did a portfolio review at SCAD 1 year, and I looked at 40 portfolios of graduating seniors of the comic book art courses, and there were only 2 women that had any possibility of getting work. And one of them ended up marrying Eric Canetti, and she's a working artist.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So I convinced her. I said, man, you got to move out to LA. I knew she could easily get work in animation, and she did. And that's when, her and Eric met. So it all worked out.
There you go.
Why does Eric hate you?
Eric, because I introduced him and his wife, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what's going on at home.
No. We're gonna have to have Eric on one day.
Yeah. He's amazing. So, Chuck, what do you have on? What's your current project you're working on?
Are we allowed to ask?
Can we ask? Is it something you can talk about?
Well, I can talk about it. I'm just going to talk around it. No, I'm kind of comics heavy at the moment. I've got 3 comics things basically lined up. One's a creator issue thing that we've been talking about doing for maybe 4 or 5 years with a writer friend of mine. I've drawn 4 issues now.
Cool.
That's hopefully going to be announced reasonably soon. Then we do more witches with Scott. And then next year, hopefully, if I manage to do it in time, next January, I start on. I've had a pitch to write and draw a book for DC approved, which I'm so excited about. It again, I around it, but writing and drawing is something I've kind of always kind of wanted to do. And I've dipped my toe in, but I'm excited about that, and thankfully they've let me do it, which is crazy.
That's great. Can you talk about the genre at all? Never mind. Let's go to Joe. Joe, what are you drawing?
No, it's not. All I would say is if you think of of what I'm generally known for and DC Comics, there might be
a little bit of a hint.
There might be something there, but yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. And the one time that I've written and drawn something before, I'd love to hear how you guys find this kind of stuff. But I did a Savage Wolverine story for Marvel. And it was essentially the first thing that I'd written, and there's lots to argue. Even though I like what I was going for, that arguably I think there's things that could have been stronger in the writing. But what I found is when I'm working on a project, I normally have maybe sort of 10, 15, 20% of my brain kind of not worrying, but like, is this good enough? Is this the right move? Is this the right approach? Is this the correct kind of thing? And what I found in Wolverine was that all of that element of my brain was taken up with the writing, and the drawing was just a breeze. It was just really good fun. And it made me think, because I'm sure we all have moments of self-doubt and everything. I mean, let me know if you don't, and tell me your secret if you don't, please.
Yeah, that would be. I would like to hear that. If
right,
that's true.
There was something kind of really. It was great to not worry about the drawing, and all my worry was going on all the writing. So with this project as well. I know that drawing is going to be a blast, and I'm really looking forward to that. So, what about you guys? Do you find, do you find that, you have moments of, I'm sure you must do, right? You might have moments of self-doubt and kind of wondering whether, not to bring the show down, guys, by the way.
It's more about moments of not self-doubt,
Right.
I think that's more appropriate. Because I doubt just about everything I do. I'm doubting everything I'm doing on this piece right now.
Sure.
And luckily, I follow the the credo. When in doubt, black it out.
Yeah.
So I just add more black to it until I like it.
It's so great, isn't it? It can literally save a piece when there's something skew with about it, and you add more shadow and make the lighting more harsh, and it suddenly seems to then start doing something and become interesting. Isn't that the greatest feeling when you've kind of rescued it?
Totally.
Yeah.
How about moments of shame? Do we have moments of shame?
Yeah.
I think we were talking about some earlier, Joe.
Moments of pity. Moments of pity
and shame. I think one of the things that's tough about a friend of mine, I was learning how to draw storyboards, and he'd been a director for a long time. And I asked him how long it took to get good at drawing storyboards, and when does it become easy? And he said, well, you'll be good at drawing storyboards in a few years, but it'll never become easy, because the better you get, the more you push your own boundaries. So you never get that sense of comfort, no matter how good you get, because you're always trying to make it better.
Well, that's if you give a shit.
Yeah, if you're trying to make it better. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that most of us are always trying to make it better.
Well, you know what they say about assumption, Jeff.
Making an ass out of you.
Specifically Dave, yeah.
Specifically Dave. Yeah, but it's true. I've never been able to. I've always thought that if I could relax and just do the drawing without hyper critiquing it all the time, that I could be faster, but I've never been able to swing that.
So you want to be like Kim Jong-gi and just?
God, I would love to. Man, I would love to be able to.
Yeah. I genuinely think when you use the word genius, I think he is literally pretty much as close as we've got currently to genius. That guy.
Yeah, watching him is both an inspiration and a kick in the balls.
That's the best kind of inspiration.
Right.
It's a painful reminder.
Oh yeah, of just how not much of a genius you are.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Wow, you really brought things down, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks a lot,
I did.
Jeff.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
Jeff.
guys. I know that was me.
Sorry, Jack.
When I started talking about self-doubt, that was it. It was all downhill from there.
Well, as you can hear, obviously, we don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's always Jeff, though. Why is it always Jeff? I don't get it.
I don't know. Jeff just likes to dim other people's light a little bit.
I'm the melancholy one, Joe. I'm sad.
Yeah.
To quote Shakespeare, in sooth, I now know why I am so sad.
Ooh, man, you just pulled that out. Wow.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
You.
I thought we had
go
no
on, but then you
Shakespeare
guys will probably
policy.
beat me up.
He's good looking and he's got brains.
Yeah.
You're the full package, the whole package, Jeff.
I can't play an instrument. You guys really have it over on me.
Jeff, didn't you try? And this is not even joking. You were a ukulele guy for a hot minute.
I did spend a lot of time in Hawaii, so I tried to learn the fundamentals of the ukulele, but it's not something I ever mastered. The only instrument I ever got good at was I learned how to play the harmonica in the Army.
Wow.
Way to be a stereotype, Jeff.
Oh, that was one of the reasons I did it. I thought, well, someone in my unit has to do this. It me.
Just in case you ever end up on a chain gang,
Yeah,
you'll be the popular one.
I'll be the friendly one. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, don't anal rape me. I'm the harmonica player.
I'm the harmonica
You
guy.
guys like harmonica, don't you?
Everyone loves harmonica.
You guys like harmonica. How about a tune, guys?
Yeah, come on. Yeah, I had a plan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
What's that way?
I was very small in the Army. I had to do what I could to survive.
I should put some pictures up of you and I as youths.
Oh, yeah,
great. Here comes another excuse for Dan to put up shirtless photos.
Oh, here we go. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, Goose.
Go ahead.
Listen, Dave, if you got it, flaunt it.
Yeah, exactly, Dave. Let me have my little day in the sun. That's all I have.
You've had enough days in the sun with Coke and baby oil. I think it's gone to your head.
Oh,
True. Good point.
yeah, there you go.
A lot of infighting here, Jock. A lot of
Yeah, see that.
it's not always pleasant here.
Hey, Jock, what kind of music did you play?
Say again, sorry.
What kind of music did you play?
Back in the day, it was heavy stuff. But now, just played like in a covers band, playing like sort of Stevie Wonder, Shaka Khan. You know,
Nice.
people can dance to. Yeah, I'm. You know, I was like a hip hop kid when I was younger, so soul stuff basically is what I love now.
Right.
I come from vocal, you know. I kind of went through my time of breaking cymbals and getting blood on the drum skin. And
That's you're a drummer. Okay.
yeah, I play drums.
That's my next question. Cool.
Yeah. Still play. Still absolutely love it. And for a while, actually, when I first started drawing comics, was just at the time that I got hired to play drums for a signed band, for a professional band.
Oh, wow.
Naturally.
And
Yeah, what a choice.
yeah, well, I was sort of trying to do both, you know, and they both kind of started happening at the same time. And I was, in this band, and we toured with a band called More Chiba. I don't know whether you guys got More Chiba.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but we toured with them throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And there was I was painting Judge Dredd pages for 2000 AD on a tour bus, and then playing gigs in the evening. And I really do not recommend that to anyone at all, because it was ropey, you know.
Yeah.
but yeah, no, you know, it sort of happened at the same time. But that band kind of disbanded, and then my kind of choice was made. You know, I had a family at home, and work started coming in for 2000 AD. So you know, so here we are. You know,
What was your band called?
well, it wasn't actually because I was hired to do it. They were called Elevator Suite, and they made an album, like 3 of them on a computer, and then myself and my 2 friends, Dan bass and keyboards, were hired to kind of play it out live. You know.
Oh yeah.
And you know, we're still good friends with everyone. You know, it was an amazing experience. We played, you know, big venues in Europe. You know, you guys seen, you know, what's the movie Ronin? You know, with De Niro and
Oh yeah.
You know that last scene in Ronin takes place in the Zénith, like a big arena in Paris, and like we played there. You know, it's like you know that kind of childhood feeling of kind of the lights go down and the crowd cheers and you walk out on a huge stage. Kind of thing.
We don't actually know what that's like, but
yeah, I mean, I can imagine it must be awesome.
I've never quite experienced that.
But you know, I mean,
awesome.
when you're young, you sort of wonder what that would be like, you know, and for a little while, you know, yeah, there it was, yeah. But I was
this for comics.
Yes, so you picked at the same time. And you picked comics.
I know, right? Oh look, I've got ink all over my head. Look, see, I draw just for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
But I picked comics and whiskey and drink and draw. What can I say?
There we go.
Yeah, good decisions. Really good decisions.
Who was your favorite drummer? You know, like just ever. Do you have a favorite?
Personal, Dave. It's not a thing you ask another drummer, but we'll let it slide.
Well, I mean, I've had many, Dave. You know, like right now, I'd say my favorite is still Steve Gadd. I would say, but I went through, you know, I mean, all the guys that played with James Brown, Clyde Stubblefield, and Jabbo Starks. But you know, when I was younger, they were all. I had a Rush phase, for example, where you know I could play Xanadu and Natural Science note for note, and I did regularly.
Wow, Mark Irwin would be very happy.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Isn't drumming really exhausting? Like, isn't it a lot? It's like a workout that Dan would love it. It was a good arm workout, isn't it?
Do you play drums, Dan?
No, I mean not in the real sense. Not in any sense, really. I mean,
you know what's exhausting, Jeff? These questions are exhausting.
Are they? You guys asked me to do this. Remember, I was quiet in the beginning, and you gave me a hard time. That'll teach you.
I mean, Jeff. You know, yeah, I guess it can be.
Doc, not a real question.
Hey, Jock, you know, something you've been doing your entire life, right? You've been playing day in, day out.
Is it exhausting?
It's exhausting.
Hey, Jock, do you have to have rhythm if you play drums?
For any of that? What's that like?
Are two sticks like really necessary when playing drums?
How heavy are those sticks?
They're pretty heavy, right? I was just thinking that Dan looks like he's getting a little smaller. He could definitely use some new cardio, and I was wondering if drumming might not be the thing.
Jeff was trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
No, you weren't. That's not true.
We all need new exercise regimens during this lockdown.
Yeah.
Well, that is true.
You know what, Joe? You sound just like my dad.
Except considerably less proud.
Are you going to give us the he gave you a cigarette speech from the Breakfast Club next?
No, just the sad, disappointed, weary tone.
Oh, Jeff.
Yeah, that's it's like Thanksgiving.
Oh man, this is like therapy now.
Yeah. Isn't drawing always therapy, Dave?
That is true. That is true.
Drawing's the only friends we really have here.
Just does your hand get tired of going back and forth like that?
Look at that cool Batman.
Let's see. Wow.
Is that the Sharpie paint marker or?
Yeah, I used to use these boys. I use Magnum for you know.
But those aren't the paint markers. So those actually bleed into the paper, right?
Hang on, where's my camera? There it is.
Yeah, because me and Dan use the paint marker version of that, and they don't really smell. Like Dan, or
you have one? Show me. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, these they're great because they don't bleed into the paper. They sit on top of the paper because it's paint.
Yeah.
Do they run out though? Because my
never.
You know,
they're magic.
Well, Okay, so like my secret weapon is I have 2 of these at all times. One's run out a little bit, so you get that texture and the like the dry brush kind of effect.
Oh yeah, it has a great effect.
Ours does the same thing.
Oh, it does. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But what is nice is you can work over them really, really well, and they don't bleed because it's paint. So.
And you don't get high on them.
Yeah.
What? What's the point?
Negative. That's a negative as far as Jeff's concerned.
It's a downside.
Yeah. Jeff can't ease the pain.
It's hard.
Yeah,
it's hard to be alive.
I remember when Dan first brought him to Drink and Draw, and I was like smitten. It was like seeing, the love of my life at that point.
He's talking about the markers, not me.
Yeah.
You're talking about me, actually.
No, that was when I saw the Coke and baby oil photos. Then I knew. I knew we would be friends for life.
So
I've
smooth.
never seen those.
Yeah. I was a big Speedo model. I wore Speedos to Wet and Wild one time. I was on the swim team. And this is in Florida. And you could just imagine wearing Speedos to a water park. That went over real well.
A family water park.
But I was a
I want
child.
to see some of these photos, Dan. Photos where it didn't happen.
You don't want those. Well, I mean.
Were you like 10, Dan? How old are you?
I was about 10.
Oh, okay. No, I don't want to see those.
Those are boring.
No, that's inappropriate.
Yeah. We're all kind of drawing away here.
I know. We just got
Nice.
quiet there for a second.
Yeah.
Hey, Dan, can I see a close-up of the one that you're working on?
Me?
Yeah.
Little old me?
No, the other Dan.
The other Dan.
Well, we're talking about let's see. Here. How's that?
Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to see.
How's that foot?
Oh, I love it. Nice work on the heel there. Brilliant.
Wait, it looks exactly the same way you did the last time.
Well, I changed the face on Catwoman this time.
Oh.
I wasn't overly thrilled with the Catwoman face.
Fair enough.
So I had to change it.
Yeah, I keep
That
adding
looks a
more
lot
and more.
like your artwork for your cool stream the other day.
Hey, the piece Dave's working on?
Yeah.
Hey, what can I say? I'm a slow artist. Especially when I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. So,
Jock, how long do you spend on a page per se? Well, not even per se. You don't even have to per se it.
As we all know, it depends what's on the page.
Very true.
But so yeah, the actual physical inking isn't so long these days. I have to say, it's kind of. I mean, for me, a page a day was good, but there were times when the schedule's against you, and doing Batman Who Laughs, I was doing 2 or 3 pages a day, basically, which is rough, isn't it? I mean,
not a whole lot of laughing.
Oh my God.
But I've sort of, the actual physical inking doesn't take me too long, me
either.
The kind of approach I've ended up taking is kind of, sort of trying to put the right thing down first time can be, if you do it, if it works out, then that's quite a quick way of working, so yeah, but sort of, if I can do a page in a day, I feel like that's a pretty good day. Wow, look at this stuff. Hang on, I'm going to just move my laptop back so I can see this. So what's this here? What am I
I penciled it for Joe, and Joe's practicing his inking.
Wow.
These are panels that I could show you. I had to white out a bunch of the other panels. So
yeah, that's terrific.
I'm kind of working on this guy right now, sort of building up that jacket a little bit. It's not quite convincing yet to me. But it's just this old dude talking to this young girl with dreads here. It's an emotional scene, So
that's great. Yeah. Again, like the body language of the heads at the bottom there, like the little tilt of the head there, Joe. That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this is all digital right now.
I was just going to say, so have you gone totally digital?
Yeah, I've never really inked my own work. So this allows me to actually, teach myself how to ink without, I'm just trying with different brushes, and then now I've started to actually do some analog inking. But there's, it just saves me time. Like even stuff here. Hang on a second. Let's zoom this in here a little bit. There's stuff like adding sort of the white bits to the dreads here, are a lot easier to do, with just the erasure tool here. Than I'm on the wrong layer, but you get the idea.
Of course, yeah. It's great.
It allows me to pay, sort of ink with white and black at the same time without having to worry about the bleeding of white out and stuff like that. So
yeah, the one thing that would make me go digital is the way that no matter how kind of skilled you are, you're still restricted when you do it physically. You're still restricted by the tools. When we're talking about fat markers, like that's a pretty brutal tool. It's it's quite easy to to get it wrong.
Yeah,
and digital just allows you just that that safety net of separating the elements within a panel, which is so hard on an 11 by 17 page. There's a lot of stuff going on in the panel. And there's some amazing guys I think that are using digitally just really beautifully. They're doing things that feel it still feels like it's hand done, because it is obviously.
Yeah.
But there's a crispness and a clarity to it that I think is really hard to get with the physical ink. I mean, obviously physical stuff has a different has its own qualities, but
I totally prefer the physical to the digital, but this it's sort of my little crutch. I lay everything out in pencil in the first place, and then I scan and I transpose it to digital, so that I can ink my own stuff.
Sure.
Danny Mickey, who went over to DC, was my favorite inker that we lost into DC exclusively. So I'm like, all right, let me see if I could try to do my own stuff.
This is kind of like an F you to Danny Mickey. This is like your way this is like your way of pissing off Danny Mickey.
No. It's my way of pissing off you.
Because I should have been your favorite inker.
You used to ink me, Dan. That's used to ink me.
Used to me. So, Joe, are you practicing now the concepts of inking, and you want to move over to inking on paper? Is that something you?
Well, I have done inking on paper on the show. I'm inspired watching you guys. I've never done it. I when I broke into comics, it was like. It was like 0 to 60 to 80 like right away. So there was no. I mean, I was teaching myself how to be a penciler, and that's all I ended up doing. I never had an opportunity to really sit down and ink. So now I'm just figuring, let me give it a shot. And it's never too late to
let them do it, Jeff.
Well, I was just going to say that I like what's going on, because I'm just trying to learn how to ink now too, and it's hard. It's like mastering a new tool and figuring out a new relationship with that in the paper. It's not like. Because I always just thought I would always just be a penciler.
Yeah, and realistically, I could just keep penciling, but there's something I'm really enjoying the idea of finishing myself, especially it is a tip of the hat to Danny. Like Danny was the first guy, whether you like his inks of me or not, he was the first guy that was actually inking my stuff the way that I was drawing it. It was literally like a very, very clean transition from his inks. Plus, he was adding a little extra bits and pieces of stuff with super fine, crocodile pens, whatever he's using, that I could never get with a pencil point. And I use, JOCK TALK. I draw with like a 4H lead, so it's like an engraving tool. So watching Danny do it, I'm like, oh man. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of what I'm almost trying to do when I digitally ink, is sort of achieve that look that he was achieving. It's not easy, man. He's really good. Dan.
Did anyone ever ink you, Jock?
No, never. In fact, I'd sort of love someone to do it, but the truth is, I'd probably take as long penciling a page to be inked by someone than I would just inking it myself. I love drawing with the ink. So my pencil pages are so rough, they're very loose, and if so long as I can see it, then that's enough for me, and sometimes that can be just a few marks. Sometimes you have to work into it and bring it out, but I love the spontaneity of trying to find it with the ink. Again, doesn't always go the way you want it to, but but I'd love to see someone else, because actually, Joe, I was going to ask, like, did you find Danny? Did he bring something else to it as well as just saying? Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like,
he was, and I would encourage him. I just said, just go for it. Like Danny, when I got back the originals, it's like blind people could appreciate that art because there were so many layers of ink and whiteout. I just loved his approach on my stuff. It was really there was it was tons of line work, but it was. I don't say there was nothing mechanical about it, and I know people feel differently about different ink styles and stuff, but Danny was probably the very, very best inker on me. And then there was Kevin Nolan, who does a completely different thing on me, which I just love sending Kevin pages and getting them back and see what comes back, because it's there's things he'll change, things he doesn't change. And, I don't know why or what he changes, but I'm all cool with it because he draws better than, most of us do anyway.
Yeah. Anyone. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
gentlemen, I'm sorry, I apologize, but these early afternoon ones are tough. So I'm past the witching hour.
All right, Joe.
All right, Joe.
I got it back to doing actual work here. So, it was great seeing you, brother.
You too.
We will meet.
Hey, we should do some. We should do some Q&As.
Yeah, we'll do.
Sure. Right, we've been going for an hour.
Q&A and
All
perfect.
right, guys. See you later.
Thanks,
right.
Bye, Joe.
See you, Joe.
Cheers, Joe. Be a good person. Stay smart. Stay safe, and all that.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Say it again.
Okay. Here's. Let me break it down. The first one: be smart.
Okay.
Stay
all right.
safe.
Wait, I got to write down.
Write that down.
Yeah. Be smart.
Yeah, this is going to help. This is going to help with a lot of the COVID stuff because
what's going on? The other one?
I forget.
All right.
It was.
I had it for a second.
Is it stale?
I had it for a moment. I figured out the whole virus, and now it's just gone.
What was the first? I forgot the first. I
don't know.
I wrote it down. Be smart. I got it. It's right here. Cool. All right. Well, you remember the second one? Let me know. Okay.
All right. I'll figure it out. I'll write it down.
Take care. See you guys.
Bye, Joe.
Bye,
Joe.
All right. Let's see here. Let's get a question. Here's a good question. Wait a minute. That's not a question.
Yeah, that's not a question. What the hell?
What the heck's going on here? Hold on. Here's something.
Questions.
I'm going to pour myself a whiskey while we find some questions.
There you go.
Drink. How
I
about
actually asked this one. Ted asked about if anyone else has ever inked you, and the answer was no. But you would like that to happen.
It'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be fun. But anyway, can we get to the important bit? Which whiskey shall I drink?
Ooh.
Let's try that Indian whiskey. I'm curious about the one in the can.
Straight in Indian?
I think you should go for it.
Got no
How
idea.
awesome would it be if it tasted a little bit like curry?
Oh, there you go.
And root.
Nice.
And root.
Sample it for us.
Yeah,
It's got a good color.
Jeff, you're getting a little thirsty there.
I am. I haven't had a whiskey in a long time. I'm feeling myself a little bit anxious.
I drank all the whiskey in the house. It's gone.
I'm a little bit thirsty as well.
Oh,
Ooh.
nice.
Well.
I would describe that as shameless.
Well, only if he was selling them.
Right, that's true.
All right.
Let's see. And we got
What was it like working on the Dread movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Would I have it there? Wait. What now?
And did you get into any shenanigans with the lead? Yeah, who is it? I forgot. Wait.
I hope you mean Carl Urban and not Olivia Thirlby.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. In fact, the first time I saw the movie was with Carl at San Diego. At the Carl's great, by the way. He's a really lovely guy, and he actually I flew into San Diego. I think it was showing on like the Wednesday night at one of the theaters up the road from the. It was kind of like the unofficial premiere, you know.
Yeah.
When I arrived in San Diego, I dropped my phone in the taxi. My phone was gone, and I was with my friend Ollie Moss, and I don't know whether you guys know Ollie. His stuff's incredible. There's a lot, known, I guess, for some of his Mondo work, but he's an incredible. He does all kinds of stuff. He's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And I was with Ollie, and I sort of sent an email to Carl saying, because we were supposed to be going to the screening of Dread, and to cut a long story short, Carl, bless him, he was like phoning Ollie saying, oh hey, where's Jock, and Carl ended up picking me up in he had a limousine. It was just me and Carl in the limousine going to the Dread movie for the first time that I'd seen it. It was a blast. The screening was great. People seemed to really like it as well, which was a real plus. It had, it wasn't the easiest film to sort of get to the finished screen. So the reviews were great. But yeah, that came about. I mean, Dredd was my favorite character, and I had done a little bit. My first bit of film work. I did 6 weeks on an adaptation of Dune, Frank Herbert's Dune.
Okay.
About kind of 10 years ago, maybe. And just as I was finishing that, I heard that the Dredd movie was in development. So because I was in kind of concept art mode, I did some pieces. I did 3 pieces, kind of just for fun. I put 2 of them online, and they got picked up as kind of official concept art for the movie. Which is not
Did you
great.
get that phone call like you got to take that down? Like,
yeah. So Dave, check this out. I am. Well, 2 things actually. So the stuff went up. News sites started reporting it as official concept art. It was everywhere. Slash Film, Ain't It Cool? Whatever, all the film sites. But the one thing that was nice about it is that they thought it looked good, and they really wanted a good Dredd movie. After the beautiful.
you can say
Rob Schneider Dredd movie.
You can be truthful.
Yeah. The stunning piece of cinema that is the 1995 Judge Dredd movie. People had an appetite for a good Dredd movie, which was terrific. But anyway, but it's like, I put a bit of work up. It is not okay for that to be considered kind of official work. I got an email from one of the producers, Michael Elson, saying, "Can you phone us?" And I was just like, "Oh no, this is really bad." And then, in fact, before this, I'd already spoken to 2000 AD, the boss Jason, and I said, This isn't me, I just put these pieces up and they've been picked up as official artwork. So anyway, I got an email from DNA, the production company, saying, can you call us? And I'm just like, that's it. I'm kind of, I'm in the firing line. But as it turns out, he said, we saw, and I started apologizing. He was like, no, it's okay because we really like what you did, and do you want to come up for a meeting about working on the film? And that's literally how it went down. So, I think when you sort of do a job like this, as we all know, you sort of make your own luck to a degree, but that's absolutely the most kind of direct bit of sort of making my own luck that I've ever had, and that led to my relationship with Alex Garland, who was the writer on Dredd, and then when he started working on Ex Machina, he asked me on board to help design Ava, the robot, and then I did a little bit for Annihilation.
I love that movie, by the way. Yeah,
it's terrific. Yeah, he's fantastic to work for. He's very challenging. Very particular in the best possible way. In the most in the way that you want people to be particular about things. He's very demanding, but I sort of recognize where he's coming from, if that makes sense. Like you have guys that you just kind of like, we're a similar generation. Alex grew up reading 2000 AD as well, and so we have maybe similar touchstones, but nonetheless, I really love the work that he does, and there's always an element of kind of reaching for something more. Like for me in the Dredd movie, like for example the drug sequences, were kind of,
those are stunning.
Yeah, right. It's a really interesting element to have in a film like that, and it adds an element of beauty to what could be a really kind of harsh film, and I love that sort of stuff, So we worked well together, and that led to Ex Machina and Annihilation, and then that led to Star Wars. Basically when the call came for Star Wars, because I had done kind of Ex Machina, and people obviously knew knew that, it led to that. So yeah, the film work all kind of happened quite organically and quite kind of it wasn't very deliberate. It just kind of, it worked out just in a really, really nice way. And I love doing that stuff. Like, we've talked so much about comics, and I adore doing comics, but the film stuff, I love film just as much as comics, and getting to have an influence and seeing the stuff that you've designed, up on screen, it's
pretty crazy. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
I think the thing about concept art that's kind of kept me from pursuing it is all that work, and 90% of it doesn't get used.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it depends on how good you are. Like all of Jock's stuff.
I see, amazing stuff, and you go, God, why wasn't that used? And the guy spent, like days and weeks on it, and it was just kind of like, and then the director comes in and just goes, nah. And then, and you're just like, no, that would drive me nuts.
The way I think about it, Dave, is like, with concept work, you're only ever part of, you're a cog in the machine, you're the point of you being there is to bolster and help other people do their job better.
That's the part Dave isn't into.
Yeah, I'm not into you just nailed it.
With comics, we're very lucky. Like, what we do is what people see, and that's what people respond to. Working in film is a really different kind of muscle to flex, But
well, when I worked in animation, I mean, I got a little bit of that working for Bruce Timm. I would spend all day doing designs, and then he would just flip through them and just kind of go, nope, 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 and then I don't like any of them. You're just like, ah. So I think that's what I love about comics is I'm the boss. I can do whatever the hell I want, and for the most part, it's usually accepted.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we're lucky that way, right? Ooh. We're fortunate to be in that position.
Here's the interesting. Jock considered doing a pencil piece for all the Drink and Draw guys to ink. It would be awesome to see 5 different versions.
Wow.
I'd be down for that.
I would love
a future episode. We should try that.
JHB 13. Thanks, JHB 138.
Thanks for giving Jock some homework.
Yeah, give him extra free work.
Would you guys be up for that? I'd love that.
Oh yeah, I'd do that in a second.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I've already got the big, super big black magic marker just all ready to go. I'm ready for you.
The Magnum.
The Magnum.
Nice. You want to give Jock another question, or should we let him go? Like, you
got any more questions?
6 a.m. for Jock at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty late.
Look, I've just poured a whiskey. I'm fine.
Yeah,
oh, good.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have any questions? I know you're always,
What? Okay. Well, let me ask you this: we all have our horrific failure moments. What was possibly your least favorite cover that you've done? The one you wish you could go back and redo.
Wow.
I happen to have it here. Hold on. I found your least favorite cover.
Which one?
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
They're all good pieces. I was going to say, well, what can I put up there that's,
there's oh man, I mean, there's very few covers of mine that I like, to be honest. You must be the same. It's kind of you always see problems. There's been certain covers that I've had to do very, very quickly. But then one of those, so I was going to say there's 2 covers that I've drawn in 45 minutes.
What? Wow. That's amazing.
But then there's a 3rd cover that I also drew in 45 minutes. That I'm really happy with. And it was the last issue to Black Mirror, the Batman book that I did. Mike Martz, the editor, emailed and said there was, because we were in Detective Comics, running right up to like the New 52. And because they were going to relaunch with #1s, they suddenly needed like the last part of the story, 2 weeks after the first part, whatever it is, whatever the schedule was. and Mike was just like, we need a cover today. So I kind of came up with I did a sketch in 5 minutes that I knew that I could achieve, you know. Drew and inked it in 45 minutes and colored it in 45 minutes, and that's the cover that was on the final part of Black Mirror. And I genuinely, it was one of, you know, as an original, it was one of my favorites. In fact, it was the one that I held on to, but I sold it about a year ago just because the guy offered me, you know, we all have our price, and the guy offered me, you know, my
Wait,
price.
which one is? Okay, I'm gonna look that up. Batman.
It's Detective Comics 881.
Detective. Wait.
It's like Batman punching like that, and like there's some glasses in the foreground of James Jr. that he's just punched.
What issue was that?
881.
Yeah, we might be able to upload it here.
Pull it up.
I'm looking.
Good.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Mike must have been
Okay, I got it.
super appreciative of you turning around like that.
But he was great. I mean, it was you know, funny enough, the cover before that was that Joker cover, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike was one of the ones. What's this?
That's Dave's fastest cover.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I took
that's colored by me though.
I took a photo on our buddy's terrace in his hotel in New York City, and just for shit and giggles, I added Batman to it, and Mark Chiarello liked it so much.
It's done. Yeah,
he turned it into a cover, but
it's magic. It looks great, Dave.
It took me 15 minutes.
Yeah. There it is. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's awesome.
That's a 2-hour cover.
Say again.
That's what did you say? A 2-hour cover?
5 minutes sketch, 45 minutes on ink, and then 45 minutes on color. So an hour and a half.
Yeah, I think one of my smallest covers I did for 100 bullets. I did it was about a 2.5, 3-inch tall thumbnail that I did for previews.
Well, like Mazzucchelli style.
Well, I just did it to get approval. It was a playing card with Agent Graves on top and Lono on the bottom, and they're both holding on to the briefcase, you know, kind of like a playing card. And when I got it home, I liked how thick the lines were because it was so small that all I did was clean it up in Photoshop, and then it was done. You know,
done. Yeah.
And that's the one Brian Azzarello wanted. You know, I said, "Hey, pick a cover," and he picked that one.
That one.
I'm like, all right, hey, great. You know, I did it on copy paper. You know.
Have you seen in the extras of Batman Year One, you know, the Mazzucchelli originals for like the hardbacks or the Warner book version, whatever it was, of Batman Year One, and it's literally just like a 3-inch high collage, you know, using colored paper of Batman's head. Yeah, check them. They're beautiful. They're beautiful, but they're just like, you know, like this big.
Oh yeah.
I can see someone asking what the whiskey's like. Is that Leonard? As Leonard in the comments asking what the whiskey's like. It's actually really good. I've never had an Indian whiskey before, and it's very nice.
Here's a question for you. It says, you have great relationships with several writers you've worked with. Given the opportunity to write your own book, would the way they write influence your story?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I've been really lucky, you know, and Andy Diggle, Scott Snyder, Mike Carey, Greg Rucka, John Wagner on Dread. I mean, they're all
great,
wonderful. Yeah, and you know, yeah, they've kind of. In fact, it was just today. I'm tightening up the kind of breakdown of the thing that I'm writing for next year, and. Yeah, I can feel all those guys in it, you know, because and it's just inevitable, isn't it? You know, the guys you work with, or at least the guys that you have a good relationship with that you work with, you know, they're going to influence what you do, and you know, John Wagner on Dread is just so, you know, he says so much with so little, you know, and Andy does a similar thing, but his plot and his like watertight plotting is really important to me, and I love how he does that. And Scott has his emotionality, but also the kind of big bombastic element that makes him the writer that he is as well. I love that about him. again, I feel really lucky that I've got to work on the stuff that I've got to work with, work on comics and in the film stuff as well. It's considering that I only kind of got into this to kind of, I don't know what you guys were like, but I didn't get into comics to thinking I'd be rich, and I'm not, but it's like, I got into it in the hope that I might at least be able to make a living, and the fact that that I've got to do so much more is awesome. That's great.
People get into this business, they really you're passionate about it. I mean, you're passionate about music, obviously, and you're passionate about illustration and drawing and storytelling, so much so that you're going to be writing, and I think that's great.
Yeah, are you excited about that? Writing and drawing your own book? That must be.
I can't wait. I can't wait. I've not been as excited for a long time.
Is it going to be like splash page 1, splash page? Splash page.
No, Dave, no.
Splash page.
Dave, no.
Dave, settle down.
Yeah. Page 1, splash page. Page 2 to 3, double page splash.
Nice. Yeah. See, that's a pro. That's a pro talking.
Yeah. Big gatefold.
There you go.
Take place in a winter setting during a blizzard, or a dark cave.
Yeah.
Do you know what, Dave? Like, joking aside, the series that I'm currently doing, and it hasn't been announced yet, so I've got to be a little bit careful. But it literally takes place in the snow, and I was just like,
smart.
Good.
I mean, you got to respect that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it means
Fabio Moon.
Yeah, Fabio.
I see Jock's face expressions on his characters.
True story. Are you able to pull up covers? Like,
depends on which one. I mean,
You can find them on online, but yeah,
online. Like the Losers. I think it might be issue 8. I think.
Hold on, I'm looking. All right, let's see.
I'm a bit of a camera mastermind.
The build-up's better than the payoff, of course. Now.
All right. It's coming. Hold on.
Hey, Fabio. By the way, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
So where would you rank? So I know you like Lafrague. Where would you put that new Indian whiskey?
So actually, that one. There we go. Hang on. Yeah, keep that there.
Oh, wow.
Let me see which way I can go. Hang on. This is 15 years ago, but
Yeah.
Yep, that's him.
That's awesome.
So Jeff. No, Lafroig was Sienkiewicz. Actually, that was Bill's choice.
Oh, it was Bill's. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the peaty whiskey, I have to say.
You know the story of the peat, the peat in the whiskey, that peat sense. Why the whiskey went that direction?
Do I know? What did you say?
I think it was basically because it was. I think it had to do with the Irish not being able to make the whiskey the way they'd like to, so they had to make it out of peat for a little bit, and that gave it that. And then, of course, naturally, it turned out great, and people love it. So,
yeah, I prefer. That's an Islane whiskey. I'm more of a fan of Space Side, but apparently now I'm a fan of Indian whiskey, which I never thought.
Yeah, who would guess? Japanese whiskey is great. Josh, man, he's always pushing the Japanese whiskey on. He's always in Japan fighting for his life, but he just loves it. So. Yeah,
there was a bottle I had last week was Nika, which is Nika from the barrel, which isn't even like a single malt or anything, but it's delicious. And actually, I've drunk the whole bottle in lockdown since last week. So
excellent.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have it this week. But it's a lovely little dram, I have to say.
Very Cool.
Look, Jeff setting a record with his drinking drawings.
Yeah, how many drawings are you gonna do, Jeff? Jesus.
Yeah.
I'm just hanging out.
He's inspired by Jock, because Jock banged out like about 6 drawings last time. So
I'm just trying to have half the confidence.
There you go.
Well, we'll probably wrap it up here. But it was great having you back. Thanks so much coming back on and drinking and.
Can I just say
thank
you so much? Thank you so much for a stable internet connection.
Oh, yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, that was great. It was great. Whenever you can talk about your projects. It'd be fun to have you come on and talk about.
I'd love that. No, thanks so much, guys, and thanks for your patience last week, everyone that tuned in and had to put up with the horror show that went down. So thanks for coming back, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
All right, Jeff usually likes to say kind of like a final meditation / prayer.
Right.
A goodbye is a little bit of a song that you do.
I'm going to go ahead and my harmonica is not close at hand, so I'm just going to say good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us. That came out awesome.
Wait. Pause that, Jeff.
There it is. Someone's asking about the sketch. There it is.
Sweet.
Nice.
That came out great. So
I'm going to get some of those markers. Those things are magic.
Yeah,
Jeff, we've been using them for years.
Yeah, but I don't respect you guys.
Cheers, Jock.
Yeah. All right, Jock. Thanks for coming on. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. Join us next week again when we have more shenanigans. All right.
We got
Be safe.
Mignola next week, so we will see you
Mignola?
then. Yeah.
Whoa.
I know. I don't know.
Does that mean I'm sandwiched between Sienkiewicz and Mignola?
Yeah,
bro.
sandwich.
That's pretty
Sandwich.
good.
Cheers to that. Cheers to that.
Cheers.
All
All right.
right,
Bye,
everybody.
guys.
See you, everybody.
Toodles.